For over 150 million years, dinosaurs ruled the Earth. They weren't just the biggest animals of their time. They were the most successful. From deserts to swamps, from coastlines to forests, dinosaurs had conquered every corner of the planet. Their world was thriving, powerful, and full of life. But even the strongest reigns do not last forever. Beneath this golden age, the Earth itself was restless. Volcanoes erupted, continents shifted, and climates changed. Life adapted, but it was always balancing on the edge. Then came the moment that would end it all. A rock from space, traveling faster than sound, turned paradise into chaos. This is the story of the dinosaurs' final chapter, the golden age of giants, the restless Earth they lived on, the day the sky itself fell, and the survivors who carried life into the future. Across the ancient landscapes, life pulsed with incredible variety. In the heart of vast floodplains, massive herds of herbivores moved like living rivers, grazing across endless fields of ferns and cycads. Towering sauropods stretched their necks toward the highest treetops, pulling down entire branches with a single sweep of their jaws. Their size alone was staggering. Creatures longer than blue whales and heavier than dozens of elephants, yet built to thrive in herds. On the edges of these plains, horned dinosaurs like triceratops formed protective circles, their sharp frills and horns ready to defend against any predator bold enough to approach. Their young played in the safety of the group, while adults kept constant watch on the horizon. This was a world where survival required both strength and community. Not far away, the forests held a different kind of drama. In the shadows, smaller predators prowled with speed and cunning. Raptors darted between trees, their feathers catching flashes of sunlight as they moved in coordinated packs. They relied less on brute strength and more on agility, strategy, and sharp intelligence. Above them, early birds chirped and fluttered from branch to branch, claiming a place in the skies that once belonged entirely to reptiles. The skies themselves were ruled by giants, pterosaurs, some with wingspans as wide as a small aircraft, circled effortlessly on rising air currents. They scanned rivers and coastlines, swooping down to snatch fish from the water before climbing high again, disappearing into the clouds. To see them soaring overhead was to witness a living tapestry of movement, each creature perfectly adapted to its role. Beneath the waters, the story was no less dramatic. Shallow seas and vast oceans teemed with marine reptiles. Mosasaurs, enormous predators with powerful tails, patrolled the coasts with a dominance that matched the T-Rex on land. Giant turtles and plesiosaurs glided silently through the depths, while countless fish shimmered like silver waves, scattering at the first sign of danger. Coral reefs flourished with color, creating havens for smaller life that fed the giants above. What made this age truly golden was not just the size of its creatures, but their diversity. Dinosaurs were not a single type of animal. They were a vast collection of species that filled every niche imaginable, from armored ankylosaurs dragging heavy, clubbed tails to nimble bird-like hunters chasing insects through the undergrowth. Dinosaurs had mastered every environment they touched. Even the plants told a story of evolution and success. Flowering plants had begun to spread widely, transforming diets and ecosystems. Herbivores adapted quickly, developing new teeth and feeding habits, while pollinators and early birds took advantage of the changing landscapes. Every corner of this world was alive with interaction, competition, and balance. This was not a struggling Earth. It was a thriving one, teeming with giants, hunters, and survivors. Dinosaurs had endured countless challenges before, from shifting climates to volcanic eruptions, and each time they had adapted and flourished. In this moment, they stood at the height of their reign. To witness their world was to see a planet at its most alive, a golden age of power and diversity unlike anything before or since. Earth has never been still. Long before the asteroid arrived, the planet was already a place of constant change. Continents drifted slowly across the globe, pulled apart and pushed together by the invisible power of plate tectonics. Oceans opened and closed, carving new coastlines while swallowing others. Landscapes that were once mountains wore down into plains, while seas rose to flood valleys and retreat again to expose fresh land. To the dinosaurs living in this world, change was normal. They had no way of knowing that even the smallest shift in the Earth's balance could ripple through their lives. Volcanoes were among the greatest forces shaping the planet. Some erupted quietly, building mountains over thousands of years. Others exploded with violent power, spreading ash clouds that darkened skies and poured rivers of lava across the land. The Deccan Traps in what is now India were among the most active volcanic regions of the time. These eruptions released enormous amounts of gases into the atmosphere, carbon dioxide and sulfur that slowly altered climates. Temperatures warmed in some regions while cooling in others. Rain patterns shifted. Forests and plains expanded or shrank in response. Dinosaurs adapted to these changes as they had always done. Some species migrated with the seasons, following water and food. Others evolved traits that gave them new advantages. Longer necks to reach scarce vegetation, sharper teeth to exploit new diets, or thicker armor to withstand predators. The balance of ecosystems shifted constantly, but life continued to flourish. Sea levels, too, were unstable. Much of the Earth's land was covered by shallow inland seas, teeming with marine reptiles, fish, and invertebrates. At times, coastlines stretched far inland, drowning forests and plains beneath waves. Then, as tectonic forces lifted land again, those seas drained away, leaving behind rich soils and new habitats. Dinosaurs were forced to move, to adapt, and to share their territories with new species. Even the climate itself was a restless force. Periods of warming brought lush vegetation and expanded tropical zones. Cooler intervals pushed deserts to grow and forced animals to find food in harsher conditions. Yet despite these fluctuations, the dinosaurs endured. For millions of years, they had lived through rising and falling seas, volcanic winters, and periods of drought. They had mastered survival in a world of change. Still, the Earth was always testing the limits of life. Natural disasters were reminders that stability was an illusion. A single eruption could wipe out herds. A shift in sea levels could destroy entire ecosystems. For all their strength and adaptability, dinosaurs remained tied to the forces of their planet. And it was this restlessness of Earth, its constant motion, that would set the stage for the most devastating event in history. It began in silence. Far out in space, a massive asteroid had been moving on a collision course with Earth for millions of years. It was roughly 10 kilometers across, larger than the highest mountains, and traveling at tens of thousands of kilometers per hour. To the dinosaurs below, nothing seemed unusual. Their world carried on as it always had. Herds grazed, predators hunted, and seas rolled against the shore. But above them, death was racing closer with every passing moment. When the asteroid entered Earth's atmosphere, the air around it superheated instantly, glowing brighter than the sun. In just seconds, it tore through the sky and slammed into what is now the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. The force of the impact was beyond imagination. Mountains of rock and water vapor exploded upward. The ground shook with earthquakes, stronger than anything humans have ever recorded. The blast released more energy than billions of nuclear bombs combined. The shockwave was the first killer. Winds faster than hurricanes flattened forests hundreds of kilometers away. Animals caught in the open stood no chance. Many were simply thrown to the ground and crushed by debris. Along coastlines, walls of water rose into mega tsunamis. Waves hundreds of meters high rushed inland, tearing apart everything in their path before receding and dragging life back into the sea. Then came the fire. The asteroid's impact sent molten rock and vaporized debris high into the atmosphere, where it rained back down across the globe. The heat of re-entry turned the sky into a furnace. Wildfires ignited everywhere, racing across plains and forests. Smoke and ash choked the air, forcing animals to flee blindly into chaos. The surface of the Earth became a burning world, but the deadliest effect was still unfolding. Dust, ash, and gases thrown into the atmosphere formed a thick shroud around the planet. Sunlight could no longer reach the surface. Days grew dim, then darker still, until Earth was locked in a shadowed twilight. Temperatures dropped rapidly. Plants, deprived of light, withered and died. Herbivores starved, and with their disappearance, the predators who depended on them began to fall as well. In just hours, the golden age of dinosaurs had been shattered, and in the weeks and months that followed, the chain reaction spread. Global climates collapsed. Acid rain poisoned rivers and seas. The food chain crumbled from the bottom up. In a geological instant, an entire world of life unraveled. This was not a single blow, but a cascade of destruction, impact, fire, darkness, famine. A chain reaction so complete that nearly 3/4 of all life on Earth vanished. The age of dinosaurs, which had lasted for over 150 million years, came crashing down in less time than it takes for us to measure a single year. Yet, even in this collapse, life did not end entirely. Some creatures managed to endure the chaos, not by being the strongest, but by being the most adaptable. Small mammals, which had lived in the shadows of dinosaurs for millions of years, found safety underground and in hidden burrows. They fed on seeds, roots, and insects, resources that remained when larger plants and prey had disappeared. Their small size and flexible diets allowed them to outlast the famine. Birds, too, survived. As direct descendants of small feathered dinosaurs, they carried forward a legacy of flight and adaptability. Many species could feed on seeds and grains, which were able to survive in the soil even when plants themselves had withered. Their mobility gave them an edge, allowing them to travel in search of food. Crocodiles and turtles also endured. Their semi-aquatic lifestyles and ability to go long periods without food allowed them to weather the collapse better than most. In the oceans, Some fish and smaller marine creatures managed to survive, though the great marine reptiles that once dominated the seas did not return. The survivors were not the giants, not the most fearsome hunters, but the small, the resilient, and the adaptable. From their survival, a new world began to take shape. Plants slowly returned as sunlight broke through the clouds in the years after the impact. Ecosystems rebuilt themselves from the ground up, starting with the simplest forms of life and climbing step by step toward complexity again. In this rebuilding, mammals began to rise. Freed from the shadow of dinosaurs, they expanded into new roles. They grew larger, more diverse, and more widespread. Over millions of years, they evolved into forms that fill the empty spaces left behind. Some returned to the seas as whales and dolphins. Others climbed trees and spread across continents. Eventually, one branch of these survivors gave rise to primates, and from them, much later, to humans. The end of the dinosaurs was not just a story of extinction, it was also a story of renewal. What seemed like the greatest loss in Earth's history also created the foundation for the world we know today. Without the asteroid's impact, mammals might never have risen to dominance. Without their rise, human beings might never have existed at all. So when we look back at the age of dinosaurs, we are not just seeing a world that ended. We are seeing the beginning of our own. Their extinction paved the way for our existence, linking us forever to that single day when the sky fell.